Sure, it'll be fun to visit or live in these places, but it definitely won't be fun for your bank account. From Los Angeles to Singapore, some of the major places in the world are pretty expensive to inhabit. Stick with us as we reveal some of the most expensive places around the world. First up is Singapore. Who would have thought that the world's financial capital would also be among the world's most expensive cities? Singapore's luxury comes from its simplicity and how well the city's structured. It has a typical tropical climate, which means you'll be able to enjoy pleasant weather all year. It also features beautiful natural scenery and a very diverse population. As this city attracts a lot of international business, the entirety of it is built with comfort and luxury in mind. But you'll need to spend over $3,500 a month to make ends meet. Yes, you heard that right. Well, the cost of living alone or supporting a smaller family is somehow low in this luxurious metropolitan, but it can still get pretty expensive. Next we have Los Angeles. We all know that Los Angeles is home to some of the world's wealthiest and most powerful people, so it comes as no surprise that it's one of the most expensive zip codes on the planet. The average monthly rent for a 700 square foot apartment is over $2,600, and the typical cost of a home being $689,000. This is significantly more than the national average, forcing many aspiring actors and filmmakers in Los Angeles to live in small, deplorable apartments in order to make the rent. The city is an excellent example of how the demand curve works. When there is a great demand for something, the prices climb. And of course, there's high demand to live in Los Angeles. As a result, everything in Los Angeles is literally expensive, including food, rent, gas, and utilities. Well, the first order of business is to figure out how much money you'll need to pay the bills on top of everything else. Besides this, LA lacks in having proper public transportation and bike infrastructure. This only leads to most of the people being dependent on cars, so no doubt gas prices increase the cost of living even more. However, the average pay in Los Angeles is $74,000, far higher than the US average of $56,000. As a result, many residents can afford the astronomically high cost of living. Now for Sydney, thanks to famous landmarks like the Sydney Opera House, Sydney generates over $30 billion in revenue from tourism alone. And considering how costly it is just to visit the place, it shouldn't have come as a surprise that it's one of the most expensive cities in the world. Just to give you an idea of how expensive it can be to live there, a pair of jeans is reportedly priced at $100 on average there. But the workers in Sydney actually receive some of the highest wages on the planet, so they're also pretty high when it comes to purchasing power, which means that the majority of the Sydney residents can afford a movie ticket priced over $20. Next up is Paris. The most populous French city is home to some of the most iconic landmarks in the world, like the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, and the Notre Dame Cathedral. There's no doubt that the idea of living in or even visiting this cultural hub will definitely be a dream come true for many people. But once you receive those credit card bills in the mail, this dream will quickly turn into a literal nightmare. No wonder, it's been reigning as one of the most expensive cities in the world for over 2 decades now. After all, it's home to some of the fabulous shopping centers, world-class restaurants, and incredible sights. So those astronomical living expenses make perfect sense. Yes, it's called the City of Light, but not for people who can't even afford to pay the basic bills there. Moving on now to Copenhagen. Back in the 10th century, this city was just a Viking fishing village. Now, fast forward to the modern time, and it's one of the priciest places in all of Europe. Personal care, transport, and recreation are some of the major factors that contribute to Copenhagen's high cost of living. Even though the workers there have some of the highest wages in the world, taxes still take a big toll on the people's earnings. With that being said, it's also considered one of the best places to live in the world due to the high living standards. Just take a look at its beautiful scenery, education system, and social safety, and you can tell why. But it's clear that living in one of the happiest places on the planet doesn't really come cheap. Of course, we have New York. The second US city on our list, New York, is infamous for its exceptionally high cost of living. Just take a look at the apartment rentals and you'll get the idea. An average apartment costs $2,600, so most of the residents are forced to live in close quarters, resulting in higher population density than anywhere else in America. But it does have one of the world's most strong economies, with an annual GDP of $2.3 billion. That's more than the average gross of many entire countries. While it's true that the average income of New Yorkers is less than the residents of other cities we've mentioned so far, it's still important to remember that while the city has a high cost of food and rent, the transportation cost is very low. That's because the city's subway and bus systems transport residents for a few dollars, so most residents don't really have to rely on a car. Besides this, the city is also home to some of the best theater, comedy, and music films in the world. There's always something something going on here, no matter what time of year, week, or day it is. New Yorkers have a plethora of activities at their fingertips, all of which are only a train ride away. You can literally do anything at any time. Up now is Seoul. Seoul's motto is the soul of Asia, and once people visit or move to this city, it's easy to see why many fall in love with it. Apartments in Seoul can cost nearly $2,500 per month, but your employer is likely to cover this expense, a cultural distinction that makes South Korea particularly attractive to expats. Now that's amazing. With the average salary being $57,000, it's fortunate that businesses often cover a major portion of their employees' rent, which arose from the ruins of the South Korean War. In just 50 years, Seoul has grown to become the world's 10th most economically powerful metropolis and second largest metropolitan region. No matter the complexity of the work, Seoul's lights have never encountered a task that they couldn't complete ahead of the schedule. Not only is the city famous for its cuisine, but it also teems with various fun activities. In fact, the city features the most art openings per square mile of any other city on the planet. No wonder it's one of the ideal living locations in Asia. Next we have Osaka. Japan's Osaka is a metropolitan city near the old capital Kyoto. It is famous for its vibrant culinary and drinking culture, as well as its notably outgoing inhabitants. No wonder a lot of culinary tourists flock to the city every year. The residents here live their life to the fullest. In fact, they're notorious for their insane obsession with drinking and eating. This has given rise to a local expression, kudeori, which means to eat yourself to ruin. And they actually do. Not only do they have to deal with those expensive drinking and eating bills, but they also have to pay high rent prices of up to $2,000. No surprise that Japanese cities have consistently landed themselves among the places with high costs of living. As with the other cities we've mentioned, rent takes up a major portion of the living expenses of Osaka's inhabitants. This is followed by high prices for car ownership and transportation. The living standard of the city is so high that some of its neighborhoods are considered among the most expensive in the world. But the average salary is only 46,000 yen, the lowest one here so far, which makes it even more difficult to make ends meet. And finally, it's Zurich. Thanks to having high living standards, great connections, and excellent education and research institutions, Zurich is one of the most important business locations in Europe. No doubt, it's the ideal place for top companies and their employees. There's no doubt that it's one of the priciest locations on the planet, but what's interesting is that it has the highest pay range among the cities we've talked about. So suddenly, a rent of a few $1,000s doesn't sound so bad. The city is surrounded by idyllic scenery as it's situated on the shore of a glistening lake. Even the water of its magnificent lake is of high quality, as are its living standards. You can take trains from the Hauptbahnhof and beyond in a matter of minutes while breathing in the fresh air. So with the high wages and amazing scenery, it should come as no surprise that Zurich surpasses almost every city in terms of livability. That's a wrap for this video. Have you visited any of these locations? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos like this. See you in the next one.